Alright. Listen up. Have you ever been in a card shop where someone flipped a table? Is your YouTube recommended page filled with 30-minute dank anime meme comps? Would your phone wallpaper probably get you fired from your job? If any of this applies to you, you should probably play Weiss Schwarz.
It's good advice no matter how much of that is true. Even if you don't play card games on the regular, and you don't have a season pass to Crunchyroll, if you have even a fleeting interest in card games, or kawaii ugu anime JKs, I'd recommend giving Weiss Schwarz a try. Hi players, I'm Jack, and this is 3-6 Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. One way or another, you found a video on a YouTube channel that's dedicated to Weiss, and this is our intro to the game. So what we want to do is give you a doorway into Weiss Schwarz. To do that, we've created a series of videos dedicated to introducing the game and its mechanics to new players. This first video is an introduction and a short tutorial. It has all the basic info you need to get started. But if you want to know more, or have questions, the other 3 videos on this playlist are a resource for you to tap into. So, let's get started. BushiRoad, the company behind Waifu Wars, or as it's known among polite company, Weiss, signed a bunch of licensing agreements so that you could play a card game that featured your favorite show and characters. If you can think of a popular anime or game, there's probably a Weiss Schwarz set that lets you play with it. So, what do? Well, here's the deal. You choose a set which will have several cards. Weiss cards come in 3 types, which are climaxes, characters, and events. You put 50 of them together and make a deck to play with. Then you sit down with a friend and battle it out to see who truly has better taste in Chinese cartoons. The object of Weiss Schwarz is to win, and you do that by knocking your opponent up through several levels until they hit level 4 and lose. The game is a stage, and you bring your characters in front of your opponent and lead them in a performance. Whoever puts on the best show wins. While your characters are on the stage, they'll attack your opponent's waifu and deal damage to him at the same time. After you take 7 damage, you'll level up. Leveling up means you can play stronger cards, but it also means you're closer to losing. Once you deal 7 damage to your opponent 4 times, he'll hit level 4 and the game is over. And that's the gist of it. So let's run through a turn just to see how this works. My friend and I have sat down to play a game of Weiss. We've shuffled our 50 card decks and now we draw 5 cards. If you don't want to start with any of them, you can discard as many as you want, and then draw that many before the game starts, and that's your new starting hand. After you decide who goes first, the game begins. So the first player will draw his card for the turn. After that, he has a choice. He can take 1 damage by putting a card from his hand into his clock or his life, but then he gets to draw 2 more cards. So I choose to do this, and I choose a card in my hand, and I can choose any, and draw 2 more cards. Remember how we said you take damage and level up? Well, the clock, this part, is your damage, and the zone beside it, your level zone, is where you keep track of your level. So right now I have 1 damage and no levels. So now I can play some cards. I look at my hand to see if I have anything I can play. You'll notice that when you look at a card, unless they're printed horizontally and look like this, which are climaxes, they'll have 2 numbers at the top left. The number on the top is the card's level. Just like you'll have levels in the game, cards also have levels. You'll need to be at least equal to the card's level to play it, or higher. Remember, you level up by taking damage from your opponent, or sometimes from yourself, like when we drew 2 cards before our turn got going. The second number on the card, the second little circle down here, is how much the card costs to play. How much what? Well, how much stock. No, not these stocks. These are for people with 401ks, you numbnut millennial. So don't worry, just look at cute anime girls. Anyway, the kind of stock we're talking about here is gained by attacking your opponent, which we'll do in just a moment. But first, I need a character to attack with. So I have this character in my hand. As you can see, she costs 0 stock, and she levels 0, so I can play her. So I put her on my stage. There are 5 positions on the stage, and I can put her anywhere I want. Since the front 3 slots here, or the center stage, are where all the attacks happen, I'm going to put her front and center. Characters in these 3 slots here attack your opponent, while characters you put in these back 2 slots just stick around and help you out. Since it's the first turn of the game, I can only attack with 1 character. You can attack with up to 3, one for each of these slots on any other turn. A character is defined on the stage by how big they are, which is their power, or this number here. And this will sometimes defy common sense. Look at this Titan, he's massive, but he only has 6,000 power. Versus this soulless witch high schooler who has 10,000. Anyway, when cards fight, they'll compare power, and that happens when you attack your opponent from a place where they also have a card facing you. The one that loses will go to the waiting room or discard pile after the turn is over. We'll explain that in 1 second. But since this Miku has no character facing her, I'm going to attack my opponent directly. Since he doesn't have a card here, I do extra damage. In Weiss, you can attack direct, front, or to the side. A direct attack happens when there's nothing in front of the character, like now. If there was someone in front of her, I could choose to make a front attack where no soul is added when they fight, or a side attack where I sent Miku around her opponent, but I take a penalty on the attack equal to the level of the character facing her. So if she was facing this character, since that character is level 1, I would take a -1 penalty. But what does all that mean? Good question. Every character in Weiss has soul. Soul is a man's rap, and it's also how you deal damage to your opponent. All these numbers we've been talking about are measures of soul. The soul icons here at the bottom of the card tell you how much soul your character has to begin with. Most of them will have 1, while grade 3s mostly have 2. So you take that number, plus a bonus damage if you're direct attacking, and then add your trigger. Every time you attack, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it has this symbol on the top right, which is the same fleur-de-lis as the other one we just looked at, you add more damage. If it has 2, you'll add 2. And if this part is clear, your damage stays the same. When you reveal a card for an attack, you'll add its soul, if it has any, and then you'll place it face down over here. And this is now your stock. You'll pay out these cards over here if you want to play cards or use abilities that cost stock. Otherwise, these stay over here. So now what? Well, I trigger for my attack, and this card has a soul icon here, so I add 1. So my character has +1 soul from its trigger, +1 soul for attacking the opponent directly, and 1 to begin with. So since I have 3 soul, I'll deal 3 damage. When you take damage, you reveal cards in the top of your deck until you reveal cards equal to the number of soul you're being attacked for. If you reveal one of these cards, which are called climaxes, during that damage, you cancel the damage and put all the revealed cards in your waiting room. If you don't, you'll continue revealing cards until you have revealed equal to the number of soul your opponent is attacking for. After that, you take those cards, put them into your clock, and those will keep track of your damage. And they'll stay there until you level up. You level up when you have 7 cards, just like we said. When that happens, you'll take 1 card from that 7 and put it over here into your level zone to keep track of what level you are. Then the rest of them go to your discard pile or waiting room. If your level zone is empty, you're level 0, just like I was. If your level zone has 3 cards, you'll be level 3 and close to losing. But here's the catch. When both players are level 3, they play their strongest characters and attempt to finish each other off. Strongest characters in Weiss Schwarz need you to be level 3 before you can play them. But that's not all the level zone does. It also dictates what color cards you can play. Every card in Weiss has a color, which can be red, blue, yellow, or green. Characters that are level 0 don't need specific colors to be played from the stage, but every other character, levels 1, 2, 3, and climaxes, and events that are level 1, 2, and 3 as well, need you to have a card in your clock or level zone that shares a color in order to play it. So if I don't have a blue card in my clock or level zone, I can't play this Miku since she's level 1 and blue. But I can still play this one because she's level 0. And remember, the same goes for climaxes. Speaking of those, we saw the climaxes cancel damage when they're in your deck. But if you play one from your hand, they'll make your characters stronger and often make them swing for more damage. You can only play climaxes on your turn, and only one at a time, right before you're ready to attack. And when you decide to attack on your turn, you can't play any more cards except for that climax. You attack, trigger, do your damage, and then your turn is over and it's your opponent's turn. And he'll do the same thing. He'll draw a card, he'll decide whether to clock or not, play characters, attack with them, trigger, do damage to you, and then he'll pass the turn back to you. So the game will progress, you'll play more characters, you'll level up, play stronger characters, Use climaxes, deal more damage, and your opponent will do the same to you. As you gain more levels, the cards you play get bigger and do more damage until you hit level 3, at which point you play your strongest cards. While your level 0, 1, and 2 cards are usually designed to ride out the game, the level 3 characters are usually built to finish it. They have big, game-changing abilities, and they come out when you're closest to losing the game, when you hit level 3 and you can only take 7 more damage. So you and your opponent will play out your finishers, and whoever can deal that 7 critical damage first wins the game. One other thing. While you're playing, you might run out of cards in your deck. When this happens, you simply shuffle your waiting room, and that becomes your new deck. Whenever you do this, you take 1 damage during the course of gameplay. It can happen any number of times during a game, usually about 2. And that's Weiss Schwarz. Simple, right? Okay, maybe not as simple as microwave ramen, but it's not out of anyone's reach to sit down and try, especially not with the resources we've laid out for any new players out there. Like I said earlier, this is just a basic game flow and a short tutorial. With this under your belt, you can probably try some games and see how you like it. But remember, there's more here. If you have questions, or you just want to know more before you get your hands dirty, go on to the next video in this series, where we'll go over a sample game and really break down the turns and attacks. One last thing. You might be thinking, well, none of my friends have Weiss Schwarz, but we really want to give it a shot now. But I don't want to drop a ton of cash. Well, the easiest thing to do is to buy something called a trial deck. Most card shops that stock BushiRoad product will have trial decks of Weiss Schwarz, and they range from about $10 to $20. They have a ready-built deck and a new player's guide in them, and they're designed for beginners to pick up and play right away. Every set in Weiss has a trial deck, so if you can't find the deck that you want to play in a store, just go online and you'll be able to track it down with no effort at all. Heck, buy your weeaboo friend a trial deck that has his waifu in it for his birthday, and help him try it out. It also gives you an excuse to buy one for yourself. Well, players, that's all for now. I wanted to keep this short and sweet for you so you're not facing an hour-long info dump just to pick up the game. Trust me, I could talk about Weiss Schwarz ad nauseum, and this playlist is evidence of that. But I wanted to help you take the first step into Weiss without breaking your leg. If you're interested in more Weiss-related content, stay tuned. On this channel, we'll have more tutorials, set reviews, and games that you can watch that feature a ton of sets and decks. So if you're into that kind of thing, I'd recommend subscribing. And throw us a like so YouTube recommends this video to more new players who type how to play Weiss Schwarz into their search bar. Alright, that's all players. Peace.